was wrong. Guess you got all you wanted. Yeah, I don't know why suddenly you're gone. You'll never be forgotten. Pretending no one is to blame. Too late to reignite our flame. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me wrong. Pretending no one is to blame. Too late to reignite our flame. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me wrong. Guess you got all you wanted. Yeah, I don't know why suddenly you're gone. You'll never be forgotten. Pretending no one is to blame. Too late to reignite our flame. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me wrong. Guess all you left me wrong. Guess all you left me wrong. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me blind. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me blind. In retrospect, I could have paid attention. I could have tried harder, been smarter, deep water, I'd be drowned. I should have felt the tension. I overreacted and acted childish, impacted it's all around. When you were pushing me away, should have tried to give you space and get out of your way. How did I not see this coming? You leaving one day. Pretending no one did was wrong. Guess you got all you wanted. Yeah, I don't know why suddenly you're gone. You'll never be forgotten. Pretending no one is to blame. Too late to reignite our flame. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me run. Guess all you left me run. Guess all you left me run. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me blind. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me blind. In retrospect, I could have paid attention. I could have tried harder, been smarter. Deep water, I'd be drowned. I should have felt the tension. I overreacted and acted childish, impacted it's all around. When you were pushing me away, I should have tried to give you space and get out of your way. How did I not see this coming? You'll leave them one day. Pretending no one is to blame. Too late to reignite our flame. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me run. Guess all you left me run. Guess all you left me run. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me blind. How did I not see you running? How did I get left behind? How did I not see this coming? Guess all you left me blind. You got me thinking all I did was wrong. Guess you got all you wanted. Yeah, I don't know why suddenly you're gone. You'll never be forgotten. Pretending no one is to blame. Too late to reignite our flame.
So, hello guys, and welcome to this Webinar X podcast. Now, why a podcast and why a webinar? So, this is kind of a mixture between the two types of platforms. So, Teknogeeks, as in part of Teknogeeks, we do podcast, and for the Club Cosmos, this particular is an amazing celebration for like World Astronomy Day, and we are collaborating with MIT-WPU Cosmos, and we are not going to do a deep dive in the tech side, but right now we'll be going for a very big jump, for a jump which will be to the sky and to infinity and beyond. So yeah, so introducing ourselves, we are Team Teknogeeks. We are a team of tech enthusiasts who are aiming to bridge the gap between the technology and the layman's. And here we are representing our team. We are Atharva Gulhane. I'm founder of Teknogeeks, and with us we have Ankur, who is the co-founder. And now coming towards the other side, that is Team MIT-WPU Cosmos.
Yes, so here we have two members from MIT-WPU Cosmos. We are the Astronomy and Astrophysics Club of MIT World Peace University, and I am a core alumni. So I am passed out in 2019, and we have Rugved, who is also a core team member of the team. We both are included in majority of the projects that we go on with, and presently Cosmos team, Cosmos Club is involved in many technical as well as the astronomy part of the space technology as well as the astronomy part. Yes.
So that's great to hear from you, sir. So now let's get started. So like as I said, let's go up in the high, up high in the sky, and rather sky. Why not? Why get like stuck with helicopters and aircrafts? Let's go into the space. Let's travel via spacecraft. So what is a spacecraft? So spacecraft is just like a vessel which is taking your technology and carrying the humans or that is the astronaut into the sky. But this particular spacecraft is being carried by a space vehicle. So space vehicle is a combination of a spaceship or a spacecraft, and it at the earlier space vehicles were expandable with the launch systems consisting of a single stage or a multi-stage rocket which carried spacecrafts like relatively with a small portion, and the total vehicle size was not that huge earlier. But now what has like with earlier exceptions, the space shuttle vehicles consisted of reusable orbit carrying vehicles and the crew obviously with the complete payload, so which supported approximately around for the whole shuttle to be carried. And now if we are talking about the reusable orbital vehicles, so they carry the crew, they carry the payload, and they are able to support any external vehicle, let's say like lunar movers and every other thing. And also now what has happened is the solid fuel boosted rockets are also being used for propulsion, so they are also a part of this space vehicle thing. Now talking about reusable space vehicles, they are capable of launching multiple payloads and can be recovered after each use, depending on if they land safely and if they are recoverable. But yeah, obviously. So the only fully reusable part of the space vehicles is currently the new Shepherd and the Spaceship 2 actually, and these are like they perform suborbital space flights. That is basically this particular reusable part of the orbitals is taken up by SpaceX, and SpaceX is developing their Starship, which is like aiming to become a completely reusable orbital space vehicle.
So now, where we will park our spacecraft, let's come to a space station. So let's talk about the technologies that is used in a space station. At a glance, the external and the internal environments of the ISS enable validation of technology for spacecraft and accelerated material testing. And next, space-based technology development not only maximize utilization of the ISS but also paves the way of advanced R&D on board future space platform. The ISS enables disruptive technological innovations in computing, the electronics, the robotics, and the hardware prototyping. And also, the ISS allows the user to address hardware product development gaps, advanced manufacturing, and emerging technology proliferation. Microgravity enabled material production capabilities and advanced manufacturing facilities are demonstrating the scientific and the commercial merit for Earth benefit. Since the space station crosses the horizon every 4 minutes, it is impossible to track using the ground station. So, to maintain the data link, NASA has a small constellation of satellites which is known as Tracking and Data Relay Satellites, or in short form TDRS, which enables near constant communication between the ground and orbiting satellites. These have data rates similar to a home fiber internet connection. Signals from the TDRS are received at two NASA facilities on Earth, one at the White Sand near Mexico and one on the Guam in Pacific. Both are connected by the fiber to maintain NASA communication hub. For events in Europe, NASA's TVDES sends the picture via domestic satellite to Toronto, then via transatlantic satellite to the venue. The lag on the pictures at such event is around 5 to 6 seconds as a result of three sets of satellite transmission and a conversion between video standard between the US and Europe. That's fine. Everybody expects there to be a delay. Says Courtney Taylor, 5 seconds is not unmanageable. Remarkably, it is rare for the connection to fail. Courtney Taylor can recall only one such mishap that has appeared in the past 10 years.
Oh, I'm really sorry. Is it audible now? Oh, okay, okay, okay. So I'm really sorry for that. Okay, I'll be starting the topic again. So like now that we have established the communication between like ground station, the satellites, and the cross communication. Now that we have established that, so let's talk about how this is being put all together. So this now comes Starlink. So Starlink is the how this is being put all together. So this now comes. Ankur, I guess there is some echo from your side. Okay, no issues, no issues. So the
Sorry for that.
billionaire SpaceX CEO is launching satellites, a series of satellites actually, into the orbit and promising for delivering high-speed broadcast internet for as many as users possible. So thinking of delivering this particular internet format, the billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk possibly is changing or like is changing from basically launching a electric vehicle into space to a company who is able to deliver high speed internet via satellites. So now talking about how this particular uh, thing is going to be captured. So first talk about how like Starlink is going to like seeking towards selling internet. So after development within SpaceX by like it has taken a lot of time, and they have actually used the funds up of around $885 million, and this has been occurring from since past 2 years. So Starlink has been progressing is accelerating in mode in 2021. In January, after 3 years worth of success launches, the project exceeds 1,000 satellites which are already being delivered to the orbit. And earlier in February, Musk company disclosed that Starlink now serves more than 10,000 customers already. And this is in the beta version. It is not yet for the complete production side, because all of the people are not yet like the whole system is not yet set up completely. So Musk company company disclosed that Starlink now serves approximately 10,000 customers. Now the service is in process for expanding pre-orders and to even more potential customer. With the people currently living in without like a complete access to high-speed internet, one of the top priorities, that is basically one of the top priorities of Elon Musk to come up with Starlink, is to connect distant people with high speed internet. All that makes actually Starlink well worth to keep an eye in 2021. For now, here's everything that I wanted to tell about Starlink. So I wanted to actually ask Ankit sir and Rugved, how what are your thoughts about it? So I'll be coming to Ankit sir first.
Yeah. So uh, Starlink basically is a very sophisticated project of SpaceX and the group of alumnus. They have had a link of satellite which will be connecting to the Earth. Like, since ISS uses these relay satellites, like Ankur rightly said, Starlink is also a kind of relay satellite that connects Earth with Earth, which is internet connection. Presently, internet connections are via fiber optics. So these optics are basic connections which you get. They are connected from continent to continents, and it has a particular web which we call it as the internet. It's a particular web of everything. connected together. But if you move a step upward, if you use the space technology in relaying the internet, then the whole world can receive it without any deception in between. So Starlink is a constellation of satellite that provides you with that particular facility. Like ground station, we have a project of ground station which we came up with, which we already have a prototype of it. And what we do is we receive weather satellites, the relays of weather satellites, which are pictures of weather satellites. We have received many satellites. We have around 50 plus satellites received. So we even receive weather satellite like Starlink. In the Starlink antenna structures and system, they receive the internet data. We receive the weather images and the weather data with ourselves. So I would like to present uh, that particular project of ours, project of Cosmos Club, which was developed by me in lockdown, previous lockdown, which is May. It's been a year, May 2020. So let me have a show. So my screen is visible, right?
Yes, yes, it is.
We have this on 27th of May 2020. We had our first reception. At that particular time, I was stationed at Bharuch, and we had developed this particular ground station at Bharuch. And this was our reception. So it was a NOAA satellite reception. NOAA stands for National uh, this weather organization, national organization for weather stuff of USA, and they have this satellite. It's pretty old satellite, but you get a good quality image from that particular satellite. As we moved on, the two cyclones that we were hit in 2020, which was Amphan and Nisarga. These were the only two cyclones, I guess, which we were hit by in 2020. Since we were late in making our ground station, we only got the after effects of Amphan, but we were able to receive the birth of Nisarga cyclone. Nisarga cyclone is a very um, it was a very big cyclone, a super cyclone, which was hit by us on 2nd and 3rd June, I guess. So likewise, you can see in the picture on the right hand side, you can see the total eye of the cyclone and a proper picture of cyclone. It was a very amazing visual that we got uh, from the NOAA satellite itself. Few of our weather satellites were specific to its nature. Like this particular satellite is a very high resolution satellite. The image that you can see on the left hand side, the same image is zoomed up to the level where you can see a small part of Srinagar. On the left hand side, you see a whole of Indian subcontinent. On the right hand side, you see a small part of northeastern ranges. You can see the snow. You can see different lakes, water bodies, likewise. So very detailed view of the terrains and likewise the nature, the ice cap mountains, and similar kind of. Even you see the peaks, the red color, part is the peaks. So you get a pretty good knowledge of the terrains from this particular satellite. We had also had collaboration with the Open Weather Community team. We relayed India data of weather from our side, which was then used by them. This was a Harvard funded project, I guess, and it was a good opportunity for us for international collaborations. So, Along with that, this particular things, we also received various CubeSats, which we will link it out later on. But CubeSats are also university satellites, which the universities make, and they uh, relay various informations about the university, as well as they relay. CubeSats basically give us information about what they feel in space. So if you want to know how the space feels like, how the space or the subspace area, the orbital areas feel like, what's the temperature, how the sun sensors are functioning, or where the sun is, you can get the data from CubeSats. So these are official data which we have received from CubeSats, weather satellites, and we have relayed it. We have given alerts. Also, adding on to the weather satellite, I would like you all to see the today's image. Today, since we all know, we have a weather warning of a new cyclone, which is cyclone Tactau, and uh, it's in the birthing phase. It's you know uh, having its birth presently. So I would like you all to have a view of uh, this particular cy- this particular cyclone which we are going to be hit by. So let me quickly present this particular. So this is the present here on the lower right hand side. You can see this big structure which is forming around the supercyclonic structure which is forming around the cross sign is Mumbai, where we have received today the date and time. As you can see, 15/5/2021 and 3:13 UTC, which is around 8:40 uh, IST, Indian Standard Time. You just have to add 5 hour 30 minutes to the UTC to get the IST for a quick conversion. It's a quick, you know, uh, thing. Then I have it in various filters. This particular thing is the multispectral analysis, where you can get the total analysis of visible as well as the infrared pictures. So you can clearly see the outer clouds also, the lower outer clouds also here, and also the water bodies, uh, the currents in the water bodies also you might be having a glimpse of. So this is a precipitation part, where you can see that this particular part, which is a bit colorful, is the precipitation zone, and precipitation might be high, the humidity might be very high in this particular range. We have a 3D pic also. This will be relayed shortly to you all. You can see it using the cyan and red color goggles. It's pretty old style, but it works, and it gives you an amazing glimpse of the cyclone. So this all are the images of cyclonic formation, and we have a thermal image totally of the cyclonic formation, um, where we can determine the temperature of the clouds above cyclonic formation. It's very important because it gives us various vital data about the cyclone. So it's about to be born. It's still in the birthing phase, and it's still moving towards India. It will have its landfall around 20th of this month. And let's see how the cyclone behaves. We will be monitoring it regularly through our ground station, which we have set up, temporary ground station, which we have set up in Mumbai, where I am presently. So these are a few projects which we have done. altogether. It's a particular prototype which we have developed altogether by Club Cosmos itself, and all the pictures, all the data which you have seen, these are exclusive to our nature, and it's exclusive reception of Club Cosmos. So this is a quite connection with the Starlink and the space shuttles. Let us move on with Guru and Atharva about the informations.
So, what is Starlink exactly? It's technically a division with SpaceX. Starlink is also the name of the spaceflight company's growing network or the constellation of the orbital satellite. The development of the network began in 2015 with the first prototype satellite that was launched in the orbit in the year 2018. In the years SpaceX has developed over 1,000 Starlink satellites into the orbit across more than 20 successful launches. In January, for the first time, Starlink mission of 2021, SpaceX launched nearly 60 satellites into the orbit from the Kennedy Space Center using the landable, relaunchable Falcon 9 orbital rockets. It was subsequent launches, so that include more in February, that have brought the total number of satellites launched up to nearly 1,300.
And those satellites are like going to provide us internet to our home, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yes, you're correct. That's just like an existing provider of satellite internet like the Usersnet or the VSAT. Starlink just wants to sell internet access, particularly to the peoples which are in the rural areas and the other parts of the world who generally don't have the access to the high speed broadband connections or the fiber which we use in our daily life. And SpaceX hardware kit that will be provided, that includes a satellite dish and a router which will set up at home to receive the signal from the space.
And how fast is like this Starlink's internet service?
So the users can expect a data speed that will vary from 50 to 150 megabits per second, and the latency from 20 to 40 milliseconds in most locations over the next several months. Starlink website said that, while also warning of brief period of no connectivity at all, as we launch more satellites, install more ground station, and improve the networking software. It will provide data speed, latency, and uptime, which will improve over the time dramatically. To the end, Elon Musk tweeted in February that he expects the service to double the speed as high as 300 Mbps by end of 2021.
Now that we have talked about the feature. So let's talk about how much it is gonna cost.
So, coming to the cost point of view, Starlink has begun accepting the pre-orders from the customer interested in joining the company's Better Than Nothing beta program. The cost of the service is billed at around $99 per month, plus taxes and fees, plus an initial payment of $500 for the mountable satellite dish and the router that you need to install at your home. Starlink also says that it is taking order from customer on a first come first basis, and that some pre-orders could take as long as 6 months to execute. $99 per month is a lot for an internet connection, especially one that isn't nearly as fast as a general fiber connection. But Elon Musk is laying down the cost, which will be worth purchasing for people who so far lived without access to efficient internet connection.
So where is Starlink available right now?
For as of now, it's only limited to the northwest US, some parts of Canada, UK, and some selected areas. But the coverage map will grow considerably as more satellites will join the constellation. But still, there is a way to go. Starlink will likely to need at least as minimum as 10,000 satellites in the orbit before it can claim to cover a majority of the globe. And SpaceX has shown signs that it wants as many as 30,000 satellites in the constellation. So far, only 10% has worked at its best, with coverage focused on the region sitting between 45 and 53-degree north latitude.
So like that is a really huge number of satellites which are getting launched. So like as you have mentioned, like there might be a blackout. So are there any other issues which the Starlinks, I would say,
Yeah,
the series of satellites might have?
as of now, there are plenty of concerns about building of privately owned satellites in the space, and the controversy in astronomical circles about impact low orbiting satellites have on the night sky itself.
Wow, like that's really great. Like considering about 30,000 satellites and the big numbers that they are trying to push, it is really great to like hear from the SpaceX and Starlink side. So like right now, like we have talked about establishing communication with ISS, the ground stations, and everything. So as Ankit sir has a lot of experience about ground stations, so we'll talk a bit about that, and we'll be further heading towards the next topics.
Yeah. So I have given you information about the weather satellites and their reception. These all receptions are done specifically by our ground station. Ground station consists of many parts, but if you go on, reducing to a very simpler number of parts, then you have an antenna which receives. Similar to the Starlink reception system, they also have an antenna. We also have an antenna. We have a receiver. We have some signal processing parts. Then we have receivers. Then we have the data processing, what all data which we have received from satellite. They will be processed, they will be decoded, and then finally we get the final reception of data. So this is a particular general layout of a ground station, and we may have various parts of ground station which I would like to elaborate. So let me continue the PPT. Also, I would like to mention a bit about the International Space Station conversation that we had recently. So I would like to enlighten a bit about it also. Our experience, our practical experience of International Space Station, I would like to enlighten. So let's view that particular. So we had stopped here. This is the CubeSat reception which we had. So CubeSat basically relays what it feels. Unlike Starlink, which relays the internet signals, CubeSat relays everything that it feels. So it relays about the temperature it feels at various sections. It relays about the sun which it sees. It relays about the electricity in it, the power in it, and various such kind of data. So on the left hand side, you will get various data of radio boards and non-technical parts, the uh, reception parts. It also relays something that is sent to it, like a picture was sent to it and it was relaying. So we had received the picture that you can see of the sunrise or the sunset, whichever you can consider it to be. So it was relayed by JY1SAT JO97. And then let us move on to the celebrated International Space Station. So presently, it's the only habited place, space station, where we have people aboard, and they are in regular contact with the ground through various stations or through various transmission units on the International Space Station. So I would like to illuminate you about, enlighten you about this particular thing, which is the ARISS event. ARISS stands for Amateur Radio at International Space Station event. The Amateur Radio at International Space Station is basically an organization which helps us amateur personalities to venture more and connect with International Space Station and know what's the lifestyle out there, and to receive a few things from it. So these are few communications or receptions that we got from International Space Station. In August, we had this inter-May event, which was specifically for the Russian school, but we also received it uh, specifically. So May stands for Moscow Aviation Institute. Uh, then we had this Sputnik event in the September October phase. Then we have uh, the celebrated event of 28th anniversary, 20th anniversary for the ARSS. So where they have actually relayed down a group picture of people about out there at International Space Station, where you can see the four red color T-shirt people. They are actually launched via SpaceX via the Dragon, their Dragon rocket, and you can see uh, the blue color space suits people are from the NASA, specifically from the previous mission. And yeah, so uh, the African guy is the first African American to be in International Space Station. So it was also a celebrating event. Some of the crew of International Space Station have also returned back specifically. So this is from December 2020, and it was we were fortunate enough to get actually this particular uh, picture of their straight from International Space Station. So we have a 10-minute gap, 10-minute time when the space station flies above us, and then they send this particular data to us, and we have to receive it in that particular 10 minutes time, and it's very packed up. We have to be very quick, and our antenna should be exactly pointing towards International Space Station to receive it. So it's a good situation. It's a fun thing to work with, and also a cutting edge thing to work with, because that 10 minutes defines your whole day's preparation, and it may not transmit the next day. So it's a twice or thrice a year thing, and if it's twice or thrice a year, then it's very rare for us. So subsequently, we have certificates for it. So we have the Russian certificate, and we have the American certificate, the NASA certificate for receiving the International Space Station or having a contact with International Space Station. Here you can see both the certificates having my name on it. Likewise, when I have received, and we also have participated in an international competition. So this WCRC, which is World Cancer and Rocketry Competition, they have this particular competition worldwide, where we our ground station was ranked amongst the top. We won the competition. So um, also in relation to all this stuffs, all this international space and stuff, there is something important which we will need, which is the radio astronomy. Radio astronomy is basically similar to a ground station, but it doesn't receive any satellite. It receives the signals from space. So as you may or may not know, space not only transmits, or space can not only be seen visibly, it can be seen via uh, you know it can be seen via uh, radio eyes also. So when you use your eyes to see the universe, you see the visible universe or the observable universe. And when you use your radio eyes or the radio telescope or radio antennas to see the universe, to call it as the radio astronomy part. So you can use radio astronomy for various cause. uh, uh, if you imagine that radio astronomy should include big dishes, no, it's not necessary. Radio astronomy can use even smaller antennas. Here you can see on the right hand side this particular small patch of antennas, many antennas connected, which we call it as antenna array, can be used to picture big objects in the universe also. So it's a very amazing topic and an upcoming topic, because you can see the universe, but seeing the universe in the radio eye is quite difficult. It needs lots of data processing and lots of serves included. Also, we at Cosmos Club had worked on developing an affordable small radio telescope. Rohan have been working on it with me side by side, and he has actually developed a small affordable radio telescope with this Tata Sky dish, and it's quite accurate enough. On the right hand side, on the left hand side, you can see a small logistic of this particular uh, radio telescope, and it's quite effective one if you wish to. Likewise, as you know, you have small observable telescopes. You also have small radio telescopes. I mean, we are trying to build a similar kind of an array where you get this small radio telescope, like in comparison with the visible small telescopes which we have at home. So it's a quite a good opportunity. Um, we are working on this particular project for expansion, so that each and everyone can learn and also can enjoy radio astronomy. So yeah, here we merge astronomy with the mainstream technology, space technology. So here merges the astronomy part and the technology part, right? So this is myself. This is from me on Starlink ground station. Over to Atharva and Ankur for further discussions regarding this theme. Like, okay,
So wow, that like we have talked a lot about how particularly we can capture a lot of data. So now I'll be going forward for how we can actually capture this solar or lunar eclipse. So first I'll be talking a bit about lunar eclipse because it is a huge process. So one thing that we need to decide is whether we are going to capture the complete sequence or just one part of it. So I would personally recommend documenting the whole process from beginning to end because you have the picture of the full moon and then a partial moon. So it will create the partial moon and the total eclipse. So it will create a really nice array of images. And the nice thing about having the entire sequence of pictures is you can later combine them to create a really nice effect of all the eclipses part to moving together. You will need like that is a lot longer process. You will need a lot of patience to do that though. It takes approximately 4 to 5 hours to capture the whole process, like the whole eclipse. And the night is when the lunar eclipse usually occurs, it is at the night obviously, and it is quite cold during that time. And there are a lot of like photographers who are actually aiming to capture lunar eclipse and everything. So what you have to do is you have to set it can easily be set up as a panorama shot where like you have to capture moon at different location and different period of times so that you get the as I had stated earlier, the whole state of the eclipse from full moon to the partial moon to the full eclipse. And if we are able to capture it at an let's say at a good landscape, it would become like it will be a really cool experience from my side because having just the moon as a set of focus from for the whole image, it would create a really nice effect overall. Now talking about how some photographers can like me as a photographer, I have captured lot of pictures of the moon, but I never have got the chance to capture lunar eclipse as such. But like some photographers have I have communicated with them and they have told me about their experience of capturing the lunar eclipse. So usually, obviously, we will be needing an lens which is often higher focal range and being able to capture at a higher resolution. So, basically for capturing this experience, the whole lunar eclipse, it is going to need a lot of planning, proper camera equipment and lenses, proper camera settings, because obviously if the camera settings are not apt for that particular situation, we'll not be able to capture the whole eclipse properly. Okay, then we'll be needing uh, focus accuracy and sharpness because moon is at a distance which is quite away from the earth obviously, and the between this distance there are layers of atmosphere which can actually, because of clouds and everything, there can be change in focus. So manual focus is obviously uh, like suggested from my side. Then we have to set a proper composition for these images, because if we are just taking pictures of the black sky and in that the particular moon is visible, it is going to be a blank composition. So adding something to that composition will enhance the complete experience of that image. And obviously, like if we are capturing these many images together, so obviously a bit, not a bit, but a lot of post processing will be needed for that particular thing. And like, okay, being a photographer, I would also like add to a point that being in that moment to enjoy lunar eclipse is also a treat. So don't forget to enjoy that.
So moving ahead, let's talk about solar eclipse. So for photographing a solar eclipse, you will need to have a camera gear wisely, which you will be taking with you. Ideally, you might want to capture two separate types of images using two different setups. The first is a close-up, using a super telephoto lens and a wide-angle view of the scene, and both can yield very interesting and unique images. Keeping that in mind, it is going to get fairly dark during totally. So a wide angle view of the scene around might result in a great looking photograph, especially if you have something beautiful to include as a part of the composition. Based on this, I will be providing two different gear and technique recommendation, one for getting a close of the solar and another for those of the wide angle shots. So let's start with the basics. Here is a quick list of camera gear you will need to photograph a close-up shot of a solar eclipse. First, obviously, a digital camera. Pretty much any digital camera will do, whether you're planning to shoot with a DSLR, a mirrorless camera, and a point and shoot with an optical super zoom lens. Second is the super telephoto lens. If you want to get a good close-up of the solar eclipse, you will need a good super telephoto lens. The longer the better. See additional notes below on adding all ideal focal length. ND or solar filter. A dense solar ND filter is a requirement to prevent the potential damage to the eyes or the camera gear. Next point is the tripod. You certainly do not want to holding a camera with your hand with the super telephoto lens attached to it, so a tripod is must and compulsory. And coming to the last point, a remote shutter release, not necessary, but it might be useful during the totally when it is dark and your shutter speed drops to camera shake prone level. While the camera might not be important, your choice of a lens and the focal length definitely will play a major role. Keeping in that mind, if you want to get a good close up shot of a total solar eclipse, you will need to get as much focal length as possible, but within limits. A 200 lens on a full frame camera is going to yield a tiny view of the eclipse. You will need to crop a bit to get the usable image, and if you go too extreme and shot with a 2000 setup, you will face all kind of challenges, from constant needs to readjust the framing to cutting off the sun's corona. Ideally, you would want something in between. Perhaps I would suggest go between around 800 to 1200 at most, and make sure you address the focus, accuracy, sharpness, composition, and framing, and also yes, enjoy the moment. Now that we have talked about solar eclipse, let's talk about the solar astronomy.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, Robert, you're audible.
Yeah, now that we are over with the boring stuff, we'll get towards solar astronomy now. So, like solar astronomy basically is a very dormant field as of now. Like people don't really pay attention towards it, as everyone thinks that it is something which we know everything about, but that is not the case. There are many mysteries towards solar astronomy. I'll share a small PPT. Yeah, so is it visible?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it's
Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's
Yeah,
visible.
so I won't like read out something, but like in general, if you consider solar astronomy, mainly two topics or three topics come up. That is the sunspots, the solar flare, and in the end, the CMEs, that is the coronal mass ejections. So, what are sunspots? Sunspots are basically tubes of low temperature which are generated because of the disturbance in the magnetic field of the sun. So there is a phenomenon that the sun's magnetic field actually shifts its poles roughly every around 11 years. So it's a cycle. So we call it a solar cycle. So solar cycle has its minimum and maximum. So at the start of the solar cycle, there are a very less number of sunspots as the activity of magnetic field is very low. But these sunspots are generated basically in the see, if you can see this image, they are basically generated in the very medial part of the sun. And as the solar activity goes towards the maximum, it goes towards the equator. Solar, so basically, solar flares are bursts of electromagnetic waves from the surface of the sun. So as you can see in this picture, the bright spots which you can see are actually solar flares, and solar flares are consisting of gamma rays and hard X-rays. So mainly what we see here are hard X-rays, which shine very brightly and are basically caused because of the sunspot. So during a sunspot, as you can see, there is a low temperature and a black spot appearing on the surface of the sun, and around it there is a illuminated part. So the actual solar flares are generated in this illuminated part. The thing is, in sunspots, we just know that it is caused because of the magnetic field of the sun, but that is not the the correct explanation as to why it happens. Because even though the magnetic field of sun changes its poles every 11 and a half or 11 years, the actual reason of sunspots appearing is still a mystery. So if you can see here, there is a coronal mass ejection. So this is called a prominence. Prominence is a kind of a structure, like a circular ring structure, which you get when like the coronal mass ejection happens. So basically, the entire energy which is stored around the sunspots is released in a very big explosion, and these coronal mass ejections can be very big. As you can see, the proportion, I guess it is not visible. Yeah, so the proportion of Earth to the coronal mass ejection is quite a big thing. So basically, these are the small topics which uh, can interest you in solar astronomy, but there are many things. If we go detail into it, we can talk about it for a lot of time. I guess the pictures were not visible. So yeah, here you can see these bright spots are the gamma rays and hard X-rays which are illuminated. And to touch up upon the study of stars in general, as you know, in 2020 recently, there was a Nobel Prize awarded in physics to Sir Roger Penrose, Andrea Ghez, and Reinhard Genzel for the discovery of Sagittarius A star, that is the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. So Sir Roger Penrose mainly had the contribution in the mathematics of the topic, and actually having the initial idea that every galaxy has a supermassive black hole at its center. So the thing is, this project, when it started, it was a 3-year project, and it was having a lot of skepticism towards it, as it is something which everyone thought couldn't be possible. Uh, but in the end, the project extended to 25 plus years. So I will just explain to you with the diagram. So as you can see in the diagram, the star is the black hole, that is the Sagittarius A star. And here you can see there is a star, that is SO2. It is named according to the nomenclature. It is not like a random name, but this SO2 star is the jewel of the like entire discovery. So basically, this SO2 star completes revolution around the black hole in 16 years, roughly 16 years. So we were able to actually capture the entire rotation, revolution of the star around the black hole, and the speed of the star revolving around the black hole is around 7,000 kilometers per second. That is one fourth of the speed of the light, if you like, very roughly, if you estimate.
roughly calculated.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you want to know the scale of this, so the closest approach of the star SO2, that is the distance between black hole and SO2 is around 100 astronomical units. So that is roughly around the size of our solar system. So if you consider that, the mass of the supermassive black hole in our center of the galaxy is around 4 million times the mass of the sun. So now that the mass is cleared, try to imagine having that mass in such a small space. And then again, you have the distance between the star and the black hole uh, around the distance of our like solar system. So if you consider sun and then black hole at the same position, the amount of mass the black hole has is just tremendous. So this is something which is still going on. So now that this has been discovered, they are aiming to actually plotting each and every orbit and having a theory. So basically, there is dark matter and dark energy. So I won't go deep into it. It is boring, I know. But like there is suspected dark matter present around the black hole. So the orbit which SO2 takes is actually going backwards. So that is speculated because of the presence of dark matter. So it is still in the very preliminary stage, but like that could be expected in the coming times. I'd say. So yeah,
Yeah, Rugved, that
this
was
is, I
really
don't want to
interesting.
be very boring about it, but solar astronomy is something which we can pursue a lot and is a very interesting field. I encourage everyone who's watching to try and get a little bit of information about solar astronomy, as if you actually go look into it, there is a lot more detailed uh, information and even lot more detailed study, and all this study is done using equipment, obviously. So in the end, just because you're engineers doesn't mean you can't go in this field. So I hope to see most of you in there, and if you have anything you can always contact me. That is those.
Yeah, Rugved, that was a really nice discussion about solar astronomy and everything related to the black hole that was found. So, like, yeah, obviously, it is a point that everyone's specific favorites are their favorites. So, it might be boring for someone else for some
Yeah,
other topic. Yeah,
because
that
then
is
it
really
becomes
true.
very theoretical as well.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But like now, let's talk about something which is not boring, but which everyone should be a bit concerned about. So I'm going to talk about space debris or the debris orbit. So space debris has begun to accumulate in the Earth's orbit immediately with the first launch of the artificial satellite in the 1957. It was way back, and after the launch of the Sputnik 1 in 1957 by the North American Defense Command, that is the NORAD, it began compiling database of all the rocket launches and the objects reaching to the orbit. So the satellites, protective shields, and the upper stages of the launch vehicles, like everything related to the data, is being captured right now. So NASA later published modified versions of the database with two-line element set, and it was started from the early 1980s. Now talking about let's talk about how the debris has actually increased in the past particular years. As of as we talk about from 2009, okay, so there were about 19,000 debris elements which were tracked over 5 inches. in that particular orbit. Okay, now that is not a huge number, I would say. But if we go to 2013, so there were more than estimatedly 170 million debris smaller than 1 centimeter, and approximately 670K. So that is approximately 6,70,000 debris items, which were approximately 1 to 10 centimeters long or huge in size, and more larger than there were approximately 30,000 debris species found. That is like not the number has increased very exponentially, I would say. But coming to 2016, approximately 18,000 such artificial objects were orbiting the Earth, and which were obviously including 1400 operational satellites. But as of 2019, there were nearly 20,000 artificial objects, and which were orbiting the Earth, including 2,218 operations satellites. So, what is the source of this space debris? So, space debris can be formed by a dead spacecraft, lost equipments like boosters, weapons like anti-satellite weapons, not weapons as not the guns or the missiles, but these are specific anti-satellite weapons. So, how can this debris be hazardous, right? Like, how is that going to harm us? So that is not going to harm us directly, but it is going to harm few things that we are actually aiming to launch. So that is a spacecraft. So space junk can be hazardous to any active satellite or a spacecraft that we are launching or we have launched already. So what can happen is it is theorized. It is not it might be happening, it might not be happening. We are not sure right now. But if that particular debris material is quite huge and it is orbiting at a speed which is higher than any impact, if it is very high and if any impact happens with any space shuttle or the space station, it can cause a really huge damage. Now, as I've talked about space stations and spacecrafts, so there are two types of spacecrafts that are being launched, which can be crewed and uncrewed. So crewed meaning that people are on board, and uncrewed meaning that it is an autonomous or an automated spacecraft. So all the spacecrafts are technically protected with Whipple shields, solar panels, and so even the solar panels are exposed to the sun. This low mass impacts can actually cause a lot of damage. Even small impacts can produce cloud of plasma, and which can actually produce an electrical risk on these panels. Now talking about the crewed spacecrafts. So crewed flights are naturally particularly sensitive to hazards more, because obviously astronauts and humans are inhabited in that spacecraft. So the example of occasional avoidances of these maneuvers and long-term space debris where on this kind of space shuttle missions can cause a lot of damage. Now let's talk a bit more about space shuttle missions. So, from early space shuttle missions, NASA and NORAD space monitoring the capabilities and the assessing the whole shuttle's orbital path of debris. In 1980s, this issued a large proportion of NORAD capacity, and the first collision avoidance maneuver, according to it was done during the STS 48 in September 1991, because there were approximately 7 thruster applied to avoid the debris which was coming towards the satellite, that is the Cosmos 955, and many similar moves were initiated for being safe from the attack from the debris in 1953, 1972, and 1982. So, talking a bit about the International Space Station, as we had mentioned earlier. So, the ISS also uses Whipple shielding to protect its interior and for minor debris, obviously. So, in 1989, the ISS panels were predicted to degrade approximately 0.23% in 4 years due to sandblasting effect that was occurring because of the orbital debris. And to avoid that, particularly, it was greater than actually 10,000 chances, it was approximately 1 out of 10,000 chances that the debris might hit the solar panels. But to avoid that, in 2014 there were approximately 16 maneuvers which were made, and in like this was the first time to occur in the 15 years that the ISS has been in that orbit. Now talking about us, how might humans get affected by this debris? So on Earth, almost all the debris burn up in the atmosphere because the size of that debris is not that huge. But larger debris objects can uh, reach to the ground for an like completely intact with really hot burning temperature on the surface. According to NASA, an average of one catalog piece of debris has fallen on Earth with like in past 50 years, which were like really huge in size. Despite their size, they have no significant property damage from this debris. So, Ankur, do you have some idea that how can we deal with this debris?
Yes, I have ideas regarding the dealing with the debris. So, on an average, and about one tracked object per day has been dropping out of the orbit since the past 50 years, averaging almost 3 objects per day at solar maximum. But one about every 3 days at a solar minimum. Usually 5.5 years later, in addition to natural atmospheric effects, corporation, academics, and government agency have proposed plans and technology to deal with the space debris. But as of November 2014, most of these are theoretical, and there are no extent business plan for the debris reduction. So growth mitigation. So as early as 2010s, several technical approaches to the mitigation of the growth of space debris are typically undertaken, yet no comprehensive legal regime or cost assignment structure is in place to reduce the space debris in the way that terrestrial pollution has reduced since the mid 20th century. Coming to the self-removal point of view, although the ITU requires geostationary satellite to move to a graveyard orbit at the end of their lives, the selected orbital areas do not sufficiently protect the GEO lanes from debris. So the rocket stages or the satellite, which enough propellant may make a direct or a controlled deorbit, or if this would require too much propellant, a satellite may be brought to the orbit where the atmospheric drag would cause it to do eventually deorbit. So this was done in by the French Spot 1 satellite, reducing its atmospheric re-entry time from a projected of around 200 years to about as low as 15 to its altitude from 830 kilometer or 516 miles to about 550 kilometers 342 miles. Coming to the next one, that is external removal. A variety of approaches have been proposed, studied, or had ground subsystems built to use other spacecraft to remove the existing space debris. A consensus of speaker at a meeting in Brussels in the year 2012 of the month October, organized by the Secure World Foundation, a US think tank, and the French International Relations Institute, reported that removal of the largest debris would be required to prevent the risk to a spacecraft becoming unacceptable in the foreseeable future. That is without any addition to the inventory of dead spacecraft in the GEO. So, coming to the remotely controlled vehicles. A well-studied solution uses a remotely controlled vehicles to rendezvous with capture and return debris to a central station. One such system is the Space Infrastructure Servicing, a commercially developed refueling refueling depot and service spacecraft for communication satellite in the geosynchronous orbit that was originally scheduled in the year 2015 for the launch. The SIS would be able to push the dead satellite into the graveyard orbits. The advanced common evolved stage family of the upper stages is being designed with high leftover propellant margin for derelict capture or the deorbiting, and in-space refueling capability for the high delta V required to deorbit the heavy objects from the geosynchronous orbit. So a tug-like satellite to drag debris to a safer altitude for it to burn up in the atmosphere has been researched. So when the debris is identified from the satellite, it creates a difference in the potential between the debris and itself, then using it the thrusters to move and the debris to a very safer orbit. Coming to the next method, that is the laser method. The laser broom uses a ground based laser to ablate the front of the debris that produces a rocket like thrust that slows down the object. With continued application, the debris would fall enough to influenced by the atmospheric drag. During the late 1990s, the US Air Force Project Orion was a laser broom design, although a test bed device was scheduled to launch in the space shuttle by the year 2003. International agreements banning powerful laser testing in orbit limited to this measurement. The 2003 Space Shuttle Columbia disaster postponed the project, and according to Nicholas Johnson, chief scientist and program manager of NASA's Orbital Debris Program Office, said that there are a lot of little gochas in the Orion final report. There's a reason why it's been sitting on the shelf for more than a decade. Any other methods can be used using the nets and the happen. So, Atharva, what are your opinions on the space debris and the method of removal? Any ideas you would like to add points that we mentioned?
Like the topics that you have covered were very vast. So actually, I would like to ask Ankit sir and Rugved for any opinions from their side for the debris removal part. Are there any opinions or
Yeah.
suggestions, sir, for
So,
this?
if you consider the debris itself, we have a debris orbit already in commission. So, like having to remove the debris from the orbit is one thing, but then what I would like suggest is if we could make satellites or whatever which we send up, which are able to dismantle themselves into smaller and smaller pieces by themselves. Then once the satellite is decommissioned, its entry into the atmosphere will result in its burning on its own, as the pieces are very small. So once they enter the atmosphere, they'll burn out before even they reach the lower levels. So there's no question of hitting it. But as of now, I don't think that is possible. But in the near future, we can. Uh, that is for the future thing. But the current debris, which is already there, that is a big problem. And like having to separate it into smaller parts means we are risking our own satellites which are still in working conditions for damage. So it is a very sticky situation, I'd say, but like I hope there are good methods and safe methods for doing what is already in the orbit. For upcoming, we can always try innovative things. At least
Yeah,
that's what
sure.
I think.
Correct, correct. So, like as you have stated about uh, them getting dismantled into smaller pieces, that can be a viable situation. But I'm not really sure how that might happen in the technology that we are like owning right now. But yeah, Ankit sir, anything from your side?
Yeah. So adding to the damages actually caused by space debris, Meteor M1 satellite. Uh, Actually, it's Meteor M22, which they call the Russian satellite. It's a Russian satellite. It was very much popular among the amateur weather satellite reception departments, and due to these space debris, this a part of this particular satellite got affected, and presently it's transmitting only in one band, which becomes very difficult for any amateur reception station to receive it. So yeah, it has caused a lot of damage even for us small amateur astronomers or amateur ground station owners, which are not professionally connected to any organization as for now, or even to the college ground stations all over, university ground stations all over the world. So yeah, it's a very big threat, and it has caused millions and millions of dollars of damage till now. Um, the best thing to actually prevent this particular uh, space debris from happening is to either descend the satellites towards the Earth, um, keeping in mind that it lands in ocean because 71% is the ocean part, so it can be landed down in the ocean, or else you should thrust it off towards the space forever, to continuous journey through the space, and dismantle it thereafter in the space itself, not gathering around Earth itself. So there are various methods which we have thought about presently in a discussion with COEP, viewing their parts and various, with all respect to their discoveries, or with all respect to their researches. They have developed space sails, I mean solar sails, which actually can change the orbit using the solar, if I'm not wrong, using the solar uh, pressure, or the photonic pressure, or the solar pressure which they have. So it's a quite innovative idea, and I guess it has been used at many places. So it can change the orbit, so it can even throw out the satellite out of the orbit, or even throw it in towards the Earth to burn into the ocean. So likewise, we can have various things done, and the best thing will be a recyclable satellite. I mean, it give it that capability that it can land intact on Earth and then can be reused later on, like Elon Musk has been thinking about, from spacecrafts to space shuttles to even satellites. So these are the few inputs from my side, which may have an impact. That's all.
Yeah, so the three R's are really important for the same also: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So Elon Musk is already working upon it. So some similar specific, like innovative space startup companies from India are also coming up. And broadly in 2020, as India is making some huge advancements in the space tech, many startups of India are grabbing attention of investors. Surviving in an Indian startup space is not that easy, as there is a fierce competition, and 60 to 70% startups fail even without emerging to the top. So emerging as in space tech startup is in India is an achievement in itself. So here I will be talking about some top five innovative and the best space startups in India. So first I'll be listing their names. First is Astrom, Pixel, then Kava Space, then Skyroot, and Agnikul Cosmos. So first I'll be talking about Astrom. So the products and services they provide are low cost, high speed, and reliable internet direct to the homes, to the businesses, to the schools and healthcare. So Astro, like now talking about Astrom. So Astrom is an Bangalore-based space tech company, which a startup basically, which was founded by Neha Satak and Prasad H.L. Bhatt on 2015 in 2015 May. And the Astrom Technology Private Limited is one of the top space companies in to include three registered patents primarily in the electric communication technique which category, and which is this particular company is launching a constellation of 198 satellites in the low Earth orbit, and this particular will this particular satellite series is going to ensure about accessibility of internet over some particular areas of Africa, South Africa, Middle East, the South Asia, and the Southeast Asia parts. So now coming towards the second company, that is Pixel. So Pixel is Pixel with and two X's, so it's Pixxel. So the products and services that they are aiming to provide are climate monitoring, crop yield prediction, and urban planning. And at the last, they are also planning for disaster response. So Pixel is an Indian space tech company which was started by a 22-year-old guy, Aviz Ahmed, and with one of his friends, Kshitij Khandelwal. So Pixel has two Indian clients and eight more clients which are globally well established. So is the only startup from Asia which is selected for the first batch of 10 startups in the Tech Startup Burst Space Accelerator in the Los Angeles competition. So they are building constellations for Earth imaging satellites, and they are planning to launch these satellites with the help of the government and the private organizations. And they are also going to like collect information with AI powered analytical data which is related to agriculture, climate, spread of crop pests and diseases, and also for defense monitoring and mining to find illegal operations. Also, they are aiming to monitor oil and gas pipelines and the natural disasters, as I had stated earlier. Pixel raised approximately $5 million to seed funding from Bloom, Grovex, and Lightspeed for the first satellite launch, which would be later this year. Now coming to the third company, that is Kava Space. So the product and services that Kava Space is going to provide is Earth observational satellites. So Kava Space is a Mumbai-based space tech startup, which was founded by Chris Nair and Bala Menon in 2019. So Kava builds and operates infrastructures in space on behalf of the enterprise and corporate clients. Their Earth observation satellites are used by their customers in their financial services, in the government departments and the strategic risk management. They are also aiming for the agricultural part of it. Kava Space has launched one satellite in the orbit, and they are also going to launch another 18 satellites. And they haven't disclosed yet, but a founder of Paytm is it is an undisclosed thing, but it might be a leak or some kind of a thing. That is founder of Paytm, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, is an undisclosed investor of Kava Space. Now coming to the fourth company, that is Skyroot. So the product of Skyroot is launch vehicles. So Skyroot is an Hyderabad-based startup by Pawan Kumar Chandana and Nagavarat Daka. Both are the former ISRO scientists. The Skyroot Spaces Aerospace is the first privately owned rocket launch company, and the Skyroot has a series of launch vehicles: Vikram 1, Vikram 2, and Vikram 3. Skyroot is into building of the first privately built space launch vehicles, and they have raised approximately $4.3 million till date. And now talking about the fifth company, that is Agnikul Cosmos. So the product and services they are aiming are the mini launch vehicles. So as we had talked about them earlier. So Agnikul is a space tech startup company which is started by Srinath Ravichandran and Mohin SPM back in 2017. This startup provided a dedicated launch vehicle to smaller satellites at very low costs. It is also one space startup company in India to design a rocket engine that can be printed in a single piece of 3D printing technology. Agnikul is making a small rocket that can carry a payload of approximately around 200 kgs. And Agnikul has also raised approximately 23.4 crores in the series of funding rounds that they have gathered. So, by looking at the passion and hard work of these startups, one thing is for sure that India has a bright future in space tech, and the space tech startups in India are gaining ground from private investors and are paying heed to the new breed of the space startups. After SpaceX has successfully launched its rockets in space, it paved a path for the young age space tech startups and proved them that they don't need any government space body to launch their space vehicles in the space. It is really a good path that SpaceX has provided for the young, enthusiastic space tech startups to get into rolling.
So now that we have discussed it about the startup, let's talk about the established. Let's talk about ISRO, DRDO. How can we get into them? Coming to Ankit and Rugved for this.
Okay, Ankit, are you going first? Like, like, okay, I'll start. So, getting into ISRO and DRDO. As many people think that only pure science students or like that is the main focus of ISRO and in general for ISRO. but that's not the case. Having good engineers is a very big thing for ISRO. And if you consider ISRO does most of its things in a very proper, detailed way, and it is very uh, cost effective as well, as you all know. So getting into ISRO, you like if you start from a ground zero level, then first you'll have to like if you start from after your 10th, so basically if there are anyone who is after trying to go to ISRO direct after 10th, so first you'll have to get into like there is entrance exams for KVPY and ISERs and all. So those are the best routes for getting into ISRO, as ISER is one of the most reputable institutes in India for astronomy and astrophysics in general. But like if you are not able to go through that way, that doesn't mean it is not possible. So using your engineering skills, try to have engineering skills in different domains and not just one. So like if you are a mechanical engineer, don't be just a mechanical engineer. So having multidisciplinary knowledge will actually help you. And there are entrances you'll have to give in general, and like having a good score is always better, but then again it depends on what actual knowledge you have. So most of the uh, like admissions are based on your interviews and not your scores. It scores are a big thing in actually selection. Like it is to basically segregate you from the average level. But once you get selected in that, then it is up to your own knowledge to get into ICER or DRD or even that. So, like, if Ankit Bhaiya has anything else to talk about, like proper
Yeah.
details.
So as far as ISRO is concerned, there are two ways to get into ISRO. So you can pursue any space technology courses in IIST, which is Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, Thiruvananthapuram. So this particular institute has a direct connection with ISRO, and anyone can pursue through this, and they can be directly absorbed after they have completed their degree course, which is an engineering degree course. Besides this, if you want to go from outside, then you have to go through the centralized recruitment board, which is ICRB exam, ISRO centralized recruitment board exam, to join this particular ISRO space agency. So these are the basic two majority gateways for ISRO, and similar exams are for DRDO. But DRDO doesn't have any collaboration like ISRO has. ISRO has collaboration with IIST. So if you are able to get into IIST, then it will be your golden chance, because in IIST you will compulsorily be absorbed in ISRO. In fact, you have to pay to get out to get into other organizations rather than ISRO, as far as I know. So this will be your best chance for those who are to enter into engineering. So those who have already started doing their engineering, you have to crack ICR.
Wow, so like there is a lot that one has to do to get into ISRO and DRDO, obviously. So there is a lot actually that we have discussed today. So I hope everyone has enjoyed the whole conversation that we had. There was a lot that I got to learn, and there is a lot that you must have got to learn. And it
Yes.
might have sparked like a kid of curiosity inside you. So I
Yes.
hope you will be going ahead and Googling many of the concepts that we have discussed. They all were quite brief. So
Yeah.
actually now coming towards the team Cosmos, I am really thankful for Ankit Bhaiya and Rugved to spend their valuable time with us, and they have gathered a lot of information about everything, and with like within the conversation that we have been in the past few days, it has been really amazing. And actually, now this is where I will be concluding this Webinar X podcast. And we are hoping to see you with more collaborations and more amazing webinars and podcasts like these. It was great talking to you guys. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
You got me thinking all I did was wrong. Guess you got all you wanted. Yeah, I don't know why suddenly you're gone. You'll never be forgotten. Pretending no one is to blame. Too late to reignite our flame.